Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the Ummah. And greetings and welcome to those who are not my brothers and sisters in faith, but my brothers and sisters in humanity. Many people, who believe in God, the creator, the designer, the fashioner of all that is seen and unseen, have asked a straightforward question, and that is God responsible for all this war? If so, why? Why would an all-loving God allow war and misery on earth and among humanity? Well, we got to honestly ask ourselves, is he truly all-loving, or is it more proper to say he is the most loving? That's important to know. Many have chosen to stop believing in the Creator due to their inability to answer these questions. Often, when answers are provided, they still find themselves unsatisfied. I want to ask you, will this video address their questions, concerns, and doubts? I don't know. But of course, Allah knows best. However, it is worth diving deeper into this subject and seeking answers based on the Quran and authentic Sunnah, the two main authentic sources of our belief system as Muslims. For those of you who may be visiting and are not Muslim, I hope this exploration of this important topic provides you with some sense of satisfaction and perhaps answers your questions. And if you are visiting and do not believe in God, the Creator, Allah, welcome. Once again, I encourage you to listen, and we can discuss your concerns in perhaps another video for us to believe in the divine. In this discussion, however, we will also review the historical context of religious wars to gain a comprehensive perspective. Let's begin. Human history is deeply intertwined with conflicts fought under the guise of divine authority. Throughout the ages, various religions have been used both to justify violence and to inspire peace. Understanding the role of different faiths in historical wars reveals a complex interplay between spiritual beliefs and human conflicts. Let's look at ancient conflicts. For example, the ancient Near Eastern religions. Civilizations such as the Sumerians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and even the Egyptians often depicted warfare as a divine mandate. For example, the Old Testament narratives of the Israelites' conquest of Canaan, which you can find in the book of the Old Testament in the book of Joshua, portray divine command as justification for territorial expansion. And similarly, ancient Egyptian wars were often seen as fulfilling the will of their gods, such as Amun or Osiris. Even in Hinduism, in ancient India, wars like the Kurukshetra War, described in the Mahabharata, were depicted as righteous battles, Dharma Yuddha, where duty and morality intertwine with divine endorsement. These stories reflect, the religious and philosophical importance of war as a means of restoring cosmic order. Now, the Crusades. Initiated by the Christian Church, the Crusades aimed to reclaim Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslim control. And these campaigns, spanning nearly 2 centuries, resulted in significant bloodshed, with estimates of over 1 million deaths. The Crusades also included conflicts between Christian factions against heretical groups. The Crusades exemplify how religion was mobilized to justify expansion, territorial conquest, and violence, often cloaked in spiritual righteousness. You also have the colonial wars and religious justifications for it. European imperialism. During the age of exploration, European powers justified colonialization through a Christian lens, claiming a divine right to spread Christianity and civilize indigenous peoples. This led to the conquest of Africa, Asia, and other countries and islands. Once again, let's examine the origins of conflict, and we're going to this time look specifically at Judaism, Christianity, and we're going to also briefly look at Islam as well. First of all, Judaism, as we mentioned, the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, it contains narratives of wars claimed to be commanded by God. For example, like I mentioned in Joshua, the Israelites are commanded to conquer Canaan, which they believe to be done with divine approval. Now, these narratives have been interpreted historically as divine mandates for territorial expansion. Historically, Christianity has been associated with numerous wars. The Crusades, 1096 through 1291 CE, are the most prominent, aimed at the reclaiming of the Holy Land. The Inquisition, 15th through the 17th centuries, led to the persecution and execution of thousands. European wars like the 30 Years' War, 1618 through 1648, also involved Christian factions. Estimates suggest Christian-led conflicts caused over 100 million deaths over the last millennium, according to some historians. Islam, the early Muslim community, during the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, fought wars mainly for self-defense, justice, and establishing peace, and this can be found in many historical evidence sources, such as the Battle of Badr in 624 CE and the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, these were fought under strict ethical limits. The Quran emphasizes justice and restraint, even in warfare. But now let's look at our modern wars and their causes. In recent centuries, wars have often been justified through political, economic, or ideological motives, sometimes cloaked in religious language. You have the Middle Eastern conflicts. Many modern conflicts like the Israelite-Palestinian conflict or the Iraq wars involve religious rhetoric but are driven by geopolitics and resources. Statistics show that according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, over 150 million lives have been lost due to conflicts involving Christian majority states since 1900. These figures highlight that historically, Christianity has been associated with the highest number of war-related deaths, especially during colonialism and European wars. Now, media will have you believe that Islam is the cause of all the wars, but history shows us different. Now, the question of whether God, our Creator, Allah, causes war this is a profound theological issue that has been debated across religious traditions and within Islam. It is approached with a nuanced understanding of divine sovereignty, human free agency, and divine wisdom. Now, from an Islamic perspective, Allah is the ultimate controller of all that happens in the universe, including war, but this does not mean he actively commands violence. Instead, Islamic teachings, our teachings, emphasize that divine knowledge and control encompass all events, yet human responsibility and moral choices play a crucial role in the occurrence of conflict. In Surah Ash-Shura, Allah states succinctly in the interpretation of its meaning, "Whatever affliction befalls you is because of what your own hands have committed, and He pardons much." The Quran also explicitly states in Surah Al-An'am, that Allah possesses complete knowledge of the unseen and all that transpires on land and sea. Interpretation of the meaning, and with him are the keys of the unseen. None knows them except him, and he knows what is on the land and in the sea. Not a leaf falls, but that he knows it. You see, this ayat underscores Allah's omniscience and omnipotence, indicating that nothing occurs outside his divine awareness and permission. However, this divine sovereignty does not imply that Allah actively causes every event, including war. Rather, it signifies that Allah permits certain events to unfold within his divine wisdom, which is beyond human comprehension, past our ability to even understand. The Quran further clarifies that divine will encompasses a range of outcomes, including diversity among peoples and nations. We got in Surah Ashura, Allah states, "And if Allah had willed, he could have made them of one religion, but he admits whom he wills into his mercy." Now you see, this ayah suggests that diversity, including conflict and disagreement, is part of Allah's divine plan, serving as tests for humanity. Now such tests are meant to evaluate faith, patience, and moral character. The concept of qadr, or what we call or translate as divine decree, his ability to know the future and all that is written, elaborates this idea further. You see, we have a hadith from Sahih Bukhari, and it teaches that the qadr, or this divine decree, is Allah's secret, so do not try to uncover it. Now this indicates that the full wisdom behind divine decisions, including wars, remains hidden from human understanding, and is emphasizing humility and trust in divine wisdom. Now, from a moral and ethical standpoint, Islam emphasizes human free agency as the primary factor behind war. The Quran repeatedly underscores accountability for individual actions. For instance, it states in Surah Al-Ma'idah, interpretation of its meaning, "Whoever kills an innocent person, it is as if he has killed all of humanity." Now, we've heard this ayat many times. It highlights that violence and conflict are ultimately the results of human choices, whether driven by oppression, greed, arrogance, or ignorance. Islam permits war only under strict conditions, primarily for self-defense and the protection of the oppressed. Remember that. The Quran explicitly states in Surah Al-Hajj, the interpretation of its meaning, permission to fight has been given to those who are being fought because they were wronged. Now this is basically telling us that war is justified only as a response to injustice and oppression, not as an act of aggression. Additionally, Islam teaches that war can serve as a test from Allah. The Quran mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah, interpretation of the meaning, "And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient." You see, war in this context is a trial meant to strengthen faith, patience, and reliance on divine guidance. But nevertheless, the Quran consistently advocates for peace and reconciliation whenever possible. It states in Surah Al-Hujurat, interpretation of the meaning, "And if two parties of believers fight, then make peace between them." Now, this demonstrates that Islam regards war as a last resort, with peace and harmony being the preferred and more virtuous path. Now, deeper, as we get deeper into this, and we take our minds and reflect, deeper reflections within our Islamic theology recognize that Allah's justice and mercy are perfect, and that war is not a sign of divine cruelty, but rather a consequence of human deviation from divine guidance. Sometimes wars serve to restore justice or prevent greater evil, such as tyranny or oppression. Now, the scholars often argue that wars fought to end injustice can be justified, but only under strict ethical conditions such as proportionality, discrimination between combatants and non-combatants, and the pursuit of a greater good. It is crucial to understand that while Allah permits certain events, including war, humans bear the moral responsibility for their decisions. Many conflicts are driven by human greed, ignorance, and malice rather than divine will. Islam emphasizes that divine permission does not absolve humans of accountability. Rather, it underscores the importance of moral responsibility and the pursuit of justice. So, where are we at here? Allah is the ultimate ruler of everything that occurs, everything in this galaxy and the universe and beyond, including war, but He does not actively cause violence. War results primarily from the human choices, acts of injustice, oppression, and ignorance, and Allah allows these events as part of His divine wisdom and as tests for humanity. Islam advocates for peace, justice, and reconciliation above all, as we showed, emphasizing that war should only be undertaken as a last resort and within strict ethical boundaries. So ultimately, understanding Allah's role in war requires humility and recognition of divine mystery. Only Allah fully knows the ultimate wisdom behind every event, including conflicts and wars. May Allah guide us all to justice, peace, and understanding. If you like this video, like the video, and subscribe and support the channel, and share the video to other people that could possibly benefit from this information. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.